What if the most powerful tool for peace in the galaxy was not a weapon, not a treaty, not even advanced technology, but a wagging tail and a wet nose? When Earth joined the Galactic Concord, no one expected their odd obsession with dogs to cause political chaos. Fist fights over dinner jokes, ambassadors storming out over barking. But as one alien commander dove deeper into this bizarre human bond, he uncovered something far more profound, something that could reshape interstellar diplomacy forever. This is not just a story about dogs. It is a story about loyalty, love, and the one connection no species saw coming. Before we start, please, click that card button in the top right corner to subscribe now. And be sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss a single one of our epic daily stories the moment they drop. There's a pinned comment on this video, and aliens hide the answer in plain sight. Can you outsmart them? Crack the pinned comment question to prove humanity's brainpower reigns supreme. Watch every second till the end of the story. I'll be waiting for your answer. Let's dive into the story. The light from the twin suns bled crimson through the observation dome, casting long shadows across the polished floor of the Central Diplomatic Hall on Virulon Prime. Director Nyla Vance stood at the edge of the chamber, arms folded, gaze fixed on the newest problem Earth had delivered to the Galactic Concord. Another report, Nyla? Chancellor Vorex asked, his luminous blue eyes flickering with restrained irritation as he approached. She sighed and turned, holding up the hollow slate. This time it was a Terran delegate storming out of a cultural dinner on Koloa 6. Apparently, someone served grilled Thalox, which to humans looks suspiciously like a golden retriever. Vorex's face twitched, and he threw a chair at the host, called him a dog-eating psychopath. We had to shut the whole summit down. The Chancellor hissed through his teeth. That is the third diplomatic disruption this cycle, all over animals. Not animals, Nyla corrected, tapping the slate for emphasis. Dogs. Dogs, Vorex echoed, the word tasting foreign and foolish in his mouth. From his side of the chamber, Ambassador Kellen Rowe of the Talari clicked his beak in amusement. Perhaps it is time to ban dogs from Concord functions entirely. Try suggesting that to a human, Nyla muttered. You might lose more than a beak. The tension in the room thickened. Vorex paced to the center and looked out over the holographic star map hovering above the council table. Every species adapts to Concord standards eventually, he said firmly. The humans will too. Nyla shook her head. Not with this. I have been stationed on Earth for 6 years. Chancellor, I have seen them sleep in dirt just to comfort a sick dog. Miss family weddings to care for an injured stray. These creatures are not pets to them. They are something else. Sentimental nonsense, Vorex scoffed. A soft voice interrupted from the back. That nonsense just cost us a trade treaty with the Sicarans. All eyes turned as Commander Saren Lorm stepped into the room, his green skin marbled with stress lines. He dropped his case onto the table with a dull thud. I just returned from Earth, he said. I tried to de-escalate the incident. I failed. Miserably. Vorex frowned. You were trained for cross-cultural mediation. Yes, and that training did not cover what to do when a human diplomat cries over a photograph of a Labrador in a holiday sweater. Kellen Rowe chortled again, only to be silenced by Nyla's glare. This is not a joke, she said sharply. We are losing credibility. The humans will not compromise on this. They are irrationally, emotionally, and fiercely loyal to these creatures. If we want them to fully integrate into the Concord, we need to understand why. The chamber fell quiet. Vorex's jaw worked silently for a moment before he finally grunted. Then send someone. Nyla raised an eyebrow. Send who? You, he said, pointing at her. You lived among them. You know how they think. Her lips twitched. I know enough to know I do not understand them at all. Then fix that, Vorex replied. Go back to Earth. Learn everything you can. And bring me back a reason not to have an interstellar incident over a barking quadruped. Nyla stared at him. then let out a long breath. "Very well," she said, "but I'm not going alone." Vorax tilted his head. "Who do you want?" She smiled. "Give me Commander Lorm. If we're going to walk into the middle of a cultural storm, I want someone who has already got soaked once." Saren groaned. "I just unpacked." "Pack again," Nyla said, already turning for the door. "We're going to meet the dogs." Rain clung to the glass of a shuttle as it descended through the clouds over Portland, Oregon. Below, the city stretched like a patchwork of gray and green, punctuated by the blinking lights of ground traffic. Nyla Vance tapped her fingers against the armrest, eyes narrowed. "This planet always looks like it just cried," she muttered. Commander Saren Lorm, seated beside her, gave a low chuckle. "It has. Constantly. Earth weather is persistent." The shuttle landed with a soft hiss. A human liaison in a soaked Navy jacket waited at the terminal gate, holding a placard that read Cultural Delegation, Vance and Lorm. Nyla stepped onto the rain-slicked tarmac and immediately felt her boots sink slightly into the damp earth. "Lovely," she said flatly. "Welcome to Oregon," the liaison grinned. "Dr. Eliza Novak is waiting for you at the dog park." "Dog park?" Saren echoed. "That is not a building, is it?" The liaison laughed. "No, it is a park. For dogs." "Of course," Nyla sighed. "Where else would we start?" They arrived 15 minutes later at a wide, open space bordered by trees, with patches of grass worn into muddy tracks. Dozens of dogs ran free, barking, chasing balls, rolling in wet earth. It was chaos. Joyful, smelly chaos. Saren blinked as a golden retriever zipped past, trailing a flapping pink bandana behind it. "Why are they not on leashes?" "They do not need to be," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Dr. Eliza Novak approaching, her long coat flecked with droplets. She offered a warm smile, then gestured to the field. "This is where they socialize. Play. Burn off energy. A tired dog is a happy dog." "I'm not certain I am ready for this," Nyla admitted. "That is exactly why you are here," Eliza replied. "Follow me." They navigated through the park until they reached a woman in a wheelchair under a covered bench. At her side sat a sleek, alert dog with black and tan fur, wearing a blue vest. "Commander, Director," Eliza said, "this is Sergeant Marla Chun, and this is her service dog, Jasper." Marla gave a respectful nod. "Jasper, say hi." The dog lifted a paw toward Nyla, who stared. "What is it doing?" she asked. "He is offering a handshake," Marla explained. Nyla hesitated, then awkwardly took the paw. Saren smirked. "You just shook hands with a dog." "Log that in the diplomatic archives," Nyla muttered. Marla's expression turned serious. "Jasper keeps me grounded. I have tremors. He helps me dress, stand, and even walk sometimes. Without him, I would not be here. I would not be me. Is he trained to do all that?" Saren asked, genuinely curious. "He is trained," Marla said, then smiled faintly. "But what matters is not just the training. It is the bond. That is what saves us." A loud bark interrupted them. A tiny corgi had taken a liking to Saren's boots and was now gnawing enthusiastically at the sole. Saren looked down in horror. "It is attacking me." "He likes you," Eliza said, laughing. "Congratulations. You're being welcomed." "I do not feel welcomed," Saren muttered, trying to shake the corgi off without success. Nyla watched the chaos unfold, her expression unreadable. And yet, somewhere beneath the barking and mud, she felt something stir. Not understanding. Not yet. But something. The walls of the Veterans Medical Center were quiet, but not silent. Somewhere in the distance, a television murmured soft daytime news. Footsteps echoed with the kind of hesitance that only existed in places built on healing and hurt. Nyla Vance and Commander Lorm followed Dr. Novak through a dim hallway lined with photographs, soldiers, families, medals, and in nearly all of them dogs. "They put them in the official portraits?" Nyla asked, squinting at a framed photo of a man in uniform with a pit bull in sunglasses beside him. Dr. Novak nodded. Always. They're not accessories. They are partners. Saren leaned in closer to one. I thought these animals only helped with physical needs. Are these all psychological cases? Some physical, most emotional, Dr. Novak replied. You are about to meet someone who can explain that better than I ever could. They entered a garden courtyard where a tall man sat on a bench, face weathered by time and something heavier. At his feet lay a calm golden Labrador, head resting on its paws. Director Vance. Commander Lorm, Dr. Novak said, her voice soft. This is Sergeant Lennox Grant, and this gentle soul is Bailey. Lennox nodded once. She heard you coming before I did. Been watching the hallway since your shuttle hit the landing pad. Nyla raised an eyebrow. Impressive. Is she trained for surveillance? Lennox chuckled. She's trained to watch me. If my heart rate spikes or my breathing changes, she moves. She knows before I do. Saren tilted his head. So, she's a medical monitor? No, Lennox said, eyes locked on his dog. She's a lifeline. There was a beat of silence. Wind rustled through the leaves. You know, Lennox continued, voice lower now. When I got back from deployment, I could not sleep. Could not sit through a meal. I would hear something drop in the next room and break into a sweat like I was back in the middle of gunfire. Nobody knew what to say, except her. But she cannot speak, Nyla said, puzzled. Lennox finally looked at her. She does not have to. Bailey lifted her head and rested it on Lennox's knee. His hand moved automatically to scratch behind her ears. She lays on my chest when I get flashbacks. She walks me back to reality. No yaiment. No confusion, just presence. Saren's expression softened. That is rare. In any species. Lennox gave a small smile. It is not just comfort. It is trust. She trusts me to feed her, protect her. I trust her to keep me here, in the world, with people. I do not know who saved who. A nurse passed by and waved. She does this for others too, the nurse said. We call her the soul welder. Bailey's tail thumped once on the stone. Nyla looked down at the dog. Her gaze lingered on the soft eyes, the stillness, the quiet command of presence. She makes you feel less alone, Nyla murmured. Lennox nodded. Exactly. And for the first time since setting foot on Earth, Nyla Vance had no rebuttal. The Parker residence was tucked away in a sleepy neighborhood lined with trees that whispered in the wind. A white picket fence surrounded the modest two-story home, and a battered soccer ball sat forgotten in the yard. As the diplomatic transport hovered quietly to a stop, a black and white blur shot across the lawn toward them. Saren jumped back. What is that? Is it charging? Relax, said Dr. Novak, stepping out. That's Bandit. He is excited. The dog skidded to a halt inches from Saren, tail wagging wildly. It barked once, then tilted its head and stared up at the alien. Saren frowned. Why is it looking at me like that? He is trying to figure you out, Eliza replied. He does that with everyone. Nyla crouched slightly, extending her hand palm down, remembering what she had learned at the park. Bandit sniffed, then gently licked her fingers. I think I passed the test, she said softly. The front door opened, and a woman stepped out, waving. Come on in, she called. Dinner is almost ready. Inside the home it was warm, lived in. There were crayon drawings on the fridge, photographs along the staircase, and shoes, many shoes, piled near the door. A young boy peeked around the corner, followed by a smaller girl who clutched a plush toy that looked suspiciously like Bandit. These are our guests, said the woman, ushering them in. I am Raina. This is Jamie and Zoe. And that's my husband, Mark. Mark appeared from the kitchen, holding a wooden spoon. Spaghetti's almost done. Hope you are hungry. Nyla glanced at the walls, at the life etched into every frame and corner. Saren leaned toward her and whispered, This house is very human. Obviously, Nyla replied dryly. That is the point. After dinner, during which Saren awkwardly learned how to twirl noodles on a fork, the family gathered in the living room. Bandit lay sprawled across the rug, Zoe curled against his side like he was a living pillow. Jamie sat cross-legged beside him, a book in his lap. He reads out loud to the dog every night, Raina explained. Bandit listens better than his little sister. Hey, Zoe said, giggling. Jamie looked up. Sometimes when I get nervous, Bandit puts his head on my lap. It helps me breathe better. You mean, you have anxiety? Nyla asked gently. Jamie nodded. My chest gets tight, and I feel like I am floating. Bandit makes it stop. Mark leaned back on the couch, watching his son. Bandit was a rescue. He was abandoned before we adopted him. Maybe that is why he is so good at knowing when someone else feels alone. Saren frowned slightly. You took in a damaged animal and then placed it with your child? He was not damaged, Raina said firmly. He was hurt, like a lot of people are. But hurt does not mean broken. Nyla looked at the boy and the dog. How Bandit nudged Jamie's hand whenever he stopped reading, as if saying, I am still here. She exhaled slowly. This is not what I expected. Mark smiled. No, it rarely is. It was just past midnight when Nyla heard it. A low, guttural growl, quiet but firm, cut through the silence like a blade. She slipped out of the guest room and crept into the hallway, bare feet silent against the wooden floor. Bandit stood outside Jamie's door, stiff as a statue, his eyes locked on the front window. Something was wrong. Nyla moved beside him and whispered, What is it? The dog's ears twitched. Another growl rumbled from his chest. Downstairs, there was a faint metallic click, then the unmistakable sound of glass breaking. Commander, she said, raising her voice just enough for Saren to hear. His door opened instantly, and he stepped into the hall, already alert. What did you hear? He asked. Window. Someone's inside. Before either of them could move, Bandit took off down the stairs like a bolt of lightning. Wait, Nyla hissed, chasing after him. By the time they reached the living room, chaos had erupted. Two masked intruders were inside, one near the shattered window, the other lunging toward Mark, who had come running from the kitchen. Bandit launched himself at the nearest threat, knocking the man flat to the floor with a deep, vicious bark. The second intruder raised a weapon, a primitive Terran firearm. He aimed at the dog. Bandit down. Mark shouted. The dog obeyed instantly, leaping back just as the weapon discharged. A loud bang echoed through the house. The shot missed. Zoe screamed from upstairs. Stay with the children. Nyla shouted at Saren as she dove behind the couch. The second man turned to aim again, but Mark tackled him from the side. They struggled, crashing into a table and sending a lamp flying. Saren's voice boomed from the stairs. Police have been contacted. Put down your weapon or face Federation prosecution. The first man tried to scramble away, clutching his bleeding arm where Bandit had bitten him. Nyla stepped forward and planted a hard kick in his side, sending him into the coffee table. Bandit circled back to Mark's side, growling low, ready to strike again. Sirens wailed in the distance. The second man broke free, stumbling for the door. Bandit chased, forcing him outside just as the local authorities arrived, weapons drawn. After what felt like an eternity, the house was quiet again. Raina sat on the couch with Zoe wrapped tightly in her arms. Jamie clung to Bandit, who licked the boy's face reassuringly despite the blood on his fur. Mark sat beside them, cradling his arm, which the bullet had grazed. Is everyone all right? Saren asked, stepping into the room, eyes still scanning. We are safe, Raina said, voice shaking. Because of him. She looked at Bandit. The dog's ears perked, as if he understood every word. Nyla crouched next to him and ran a hand gently down his back. You protected your family, she whispered, even when it meant putting yourself in danger. Bandit gave a soft huff, then leaned into her touch. Saren exhaled slowly. Now I see. Nyla nodded. So do I. The committee chamber on Virulon Prime buzzed with tension. Delegates from 27 species murmured among themselves, their voices overlapping in waves of curiosity and doubt. Holographic displays flickered to life around the perimeter, casting soft glows on shimmering scales, shifting fur, and blinking compound eyes. Director Nyla Vance stood at the center of the hall, posture poised, jaw tight. Commander Saren Lorm stood to her left, arms crossed. At her right sat Bandit, calm, quiet, and utterly unaware he was about to redefine galactic diplomacy. High Chancellor Vorex adjusted his robe and cleared his throat. "You called this assembly under emergency status, Director Vance. I trust your findings justify the disruption." "They do," Nyla said. "And more." She tapped the interface on her wrist, and a series of holograms appeared. Images of dogs aiding humans. A husky pulling a wheelchair through snow, a beagle sniffing for explosives, a German shepherd leaping between a child and a falling tree limb. "We have long underestimated the significance of non-sentient species in emotional, social, and even interplanetary dynamics," she continued. "Until recently, I believed that myself." Chancellor Vorex raised a brow. "You wish to argue that these animals deserve cultural status?" "I do not wish," Nyla replied. "I demand." A soft ripple moved through the chamber. Murmurs. Surprise. A few audible scoffs. Ambassador Trell of the Uxery hissed. "They cannot even speak." "They do not need to," Saren said, stepping forward. "They understand emotion. They anticipate need. They protect without hesitation. I've seen one willingly throw itself between a child and a weapon. And what of the human who shielded the dog?" Nyla added. "He put his life on the line, not because of obligation or strategy, but love. Loyalty." Ambassador Vec of the Yolani clicked her mandibles. "Sentimentality is not enough to warrant policy." "No," Nyla said, her voice firm. "But interspecies cooperation is. Since dogs became recognized within human diplomatic protocols, aggression between human and non-human personnel has dropped by over 60%. Cultural misunderstandings have lessened. Emotional diplomacy has increased." She pointed to Bandit, who lay calmly at her feet. "He is not a tool. He is not an ornament. He is family. And if we are to include humanity in the Concord fully, we must honor that bond." Vorex leaned back, studying her. "And what exactly are you proposing?" Nyla inhaled. "Official cultural heritage status for Earth canines. Recognition of their unique emotional bond with humanity. And a pilot program. Volunteer diplomats from across the Concord paired with trained Earth dogs for 3-month terms." Another ripple. Some of curiosity. Some of outright amusement. "You want us to what?" "Adopt Terran pets." Trell sneered. "Not adopt," Saren said. "Partner." Vorex stared at the dog, then slowly said, "This is highly unconventional." "So is Earth," Nyla replied. "Yet here we are." A moment of silence stretched too long. Then, from the far side of the room, Counselor Iron of the Solari spoke. "I volunteer." All heads turned. Her scaled companion blinked. "You do." She nodded. "Let us see if loyalty truly can be learned." One by one, hands, claws, wings, and tendrils rose. A new chapter was beginning. The sun filtered through the embassy's glass atrium, casting golden beams over polished floors and alien plants that curled toward the warmth. Scout lay sprawled beneath Nyla Vance's desk, his tail flicking lazily each time she shifted in her chair. "Report says another 6 diplomats requested to extend their canine pairings," Saren announced as he walked in, holding a tablet. Nyla looked up, her expression unreadable. 6. Ambassador Trell included, he added with a crooked smile. "Apparently, he and that scruffy, mutt-named pudding are now inseparable." "Who would have guessed?" Nyla chuckled softly. "Trell once said dogs were sentient lint with legs. Now he carries treats in his robe pocket," Saren grinned. Scout raised his head, ears perking up. "Yes, we are talking about your species," Nyla told him. The dog gave a small huff and rested his head back on his paws. A knock came at the office door. It opened to reveal a familiar face, Thomas Parker, with Bandit trotting beside him and Zoe holding his hand tightly. "Hope we are not interrupting," Thomas said. "You could interrupt a war and still be welcome," Nyla replied, standing. "Cool mean." Zoe ran straight to Scout and wrapped her arms around him. Scout licked her cheek gently. "We brought something," Thomas said, pulling a small holodeck from his coat. "Thought you might want to see it." Nyla accepted it and slid it into the projector slot. The display lit up with images, diplomats from a dozen species walking alongside dogs in training fields, playing in parks, sitting through briefings with canines snoozing at their feet. One scene showed a Telari delegate sleeping peacefully with a terrier curled against their side. Another, a Solari ambassador nervously entering a press conference, a Labrador leaning into their leg like a silent anchor. "These are from the Concorde pilot teams?" Nyla asked. Thomas nodded. "Every single one. And guess what?" "What?" she asked. "They're all smiling." She stared at the images for a long moment, then turned back to him. "Do you remember when I first came to your house? I thought Bandit was evaluating me." Thomas smirked. "He still is." Bandit barked once, almost in agreement. Zoe tugged Nyla's sleeve. "Is Scout your dog now?" she asked. Nyla looked down at the shaggy gray creature who had once growled at her shoes and now followed her like a shadow. "No," she said gently. "He is not mine." Zoe blinked, confused. "He is my partner." Scout stood, stretched, and patted over to her. She reached down, fingers resting lightly behind his ears. "He chose me," she added, "and I chose him." Outside, the courtyard was filled with diplomats and their dogs, laughter and barking mingling in the air. No translation required, just understanding. As the sun dipped lower, casting amber light through the glass, Nyla looked toward the stars and said, "I think humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy was not technology, not innovation, but connection." Saren raised an eyebrow. "Are you getting sentimental?" She smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I am just finally understanding." Scout nuzzled her hand, and she let him. Here is the story's end. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want the next chapters to be published soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.